Alright. It's fucking working now. We're gonna try this again. I made like a whole fucking video before I realized the audio wasn't recording. And still peaking and being weird. Whatever. So, try again. Hey everyone, it's Odin here. It's Sunday evening. You know what that means. That means rambling on about all the most important news in the world, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Whatever rolls past my melon. And those of you who enjoy that, I appreciate that you enjoy it. I enjoy that you enjoy it. And so we're going to try this all over again. All discombobulated. I'm like, I had hit record. I was rambling on for 30 minutes before I noticed there was no volume going into the microphone for whatever reason. I had to unplug it, replug it back in. I had to take it away, add it back in, all this other shit. So we're good now. Anyway, fuck, what the fuck am I talking about? I'm talking about, one, it's hot as fuck. The sun's starting to set, so it's starting to cool down, but it has been ridiculously hot. The entire country, for the most part, is experiencing this heat wave, but it is mid-July, so what do we expect? You know, that's about what happens. And I made myself a drink. This is cranberry juice and brandy. Like I said, I just talked about all this, but I'd never had brandy before in my entire life, so I got some of this. There was no top shelf where I was at. I'm like, if I'm going to try it for the first time, I should buy some top shelf shit. There was no top shelf. It was all super cheap. And so I grabbed Christian Brothers brandy on a whim. And I went, I don't know nothing about brandy. The whole reason I bought it is because I knew I'd never tried it, but also it was in a story that James and I were writing. There's a scene with the faux Jamaican guy going, "Me brandy, this is me brandy." It was a joke, and then I'm like, I've never actually had brandy, so let's give it a shot. And then I had to look up on Google what the hell brandy actually is, and then I had to look up how do you drink brandy, like what's the best way, and they said at room temperature, no ice, just drink it straight up. So I tried that, and again, this isn't top shelf. There was no top shelf brandy where I went. And it tasted like ass, so I was like, oh, what else can we do? And I read about somebody making an old-fashioned with brandy using cranberry juice, but I didn't have orange. I didn't have an orange. I didn't have bitters, the things you need to make a old-fashioned. And I was like, well, it was a cranberry old-fashioned, so then I was like, I'll just try mixing it with cranberry juice, and it was freaking good. So I'm going to kind of chug this and make myself another one while these ice cubes are still semi-fresh. Because it's really good with cranberry juice, I found. And that's how I'm going to finish this bottle, because I do not particularly like brandy, at least this cheap-ass brandy. Like someday I'll go to the liquor warehouse place and see if they have some top shelf brandy and give it a shot on its own. But that's been met with mixed results as well. Like, I found I really just like bourbon. I don't like other whiskeys. I don't like vodka. I don't like tequila. I don't like rum. I don't like any of it. I like bourbon. Like even other whiskeys. Scotch and sorry, I just took a big old gulp. Scotch and rye whiskey and yeah, Canadian whiskey. Not for me. But bourbon, I guess that's my thing, and that's probably gonna suit me well moving to the Midwest. It's bourbon country out there. I'll be in Missouri, which is adjacent to Kentucky, so you know, the birthplace of bourbon, as far as I know, anyway. Or Tennessee, Kentucky or Tennessee, I don't know, but Missouri's adjacent to both of them, so. So anyway, we're working on that shit. I had a job interview, and I know I can have that job. All I have to do is say I want it. They're going to talk to me again Monday for like another interview, a Zoom, whatever. I know I can have that job if I want it, but it's just the first thing that came up for the area, and it's a significant pay cut. I'd say it's about 5/8 of what my salary is now. Now, it's definitely cheaper to live in Missouri, but where I'm at now, I have such a good deal on my rental, because I rent my house, that it's like, it's cheap regardless of whether I was in Missouri. Like, it's cheaper than Missouri places for the same thing. So that reduction in pay is a big thing. That said, it's where I want to be. There's potential that it could turn into something better, something that I want to be doing. But it gets me out there. I could probably set the date that I start, which I would probably set to September 1st. Which is somewhat ironic. Like, I could set it to September 1st, which is kind of cool because that's the date I started at the current job I'm at, all the way back in 2010. I've been here 13 years to be exact. Well, 13 years on September 1st. So that's an interesting time. That's also like ending of summer, moving into the school year, the beginning of fall, the end of summer, beginning of fall. So that would be if I could set the date. But if I had a date, it really does help centralize my focus on this move. So anyway, and I just talked about all this shit a bit ago. I just made a whole video almost, or I wasn't recording myself. So anyway, quickly talk about this drawing here. This is just something that I've been noodling on in my spare time when I don't want to work on something I'm supposed to be working on. This is just for fun. It's a Dark Angel kind of concept. It's something I started a long time ago. I did the pencils for it many months ago, and then it just sat there. But I was like, those are cool. I want to draw, or I want to ink this someday. And so I started inking it when I kind of got stale with doing things I'm supposed to be doing. So what I'm supposed to be doing is this. It's like a card set, so it's a 4-card set. It's all the Broken Compass Entertainment main characters at the moment, anyway. I'm happy with this one. This is Monty from Magnificent Bastards. There's something I see right now that I want to adjust, but nonetheless, that one's pretty well. I like it. It's Monty in my style. Like, I drew him in that Chinatown cover, which was really cool. I really liked that. But I wanted to make it more like my style. Like, what would Monty look like in the Shove universe? So, that's kind of where I went. And that turned out fine. And then I started drawing Vidon, but Vidon was turning out kind of... he just looks old, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing that made him look so old. So there's going to be some refinement, or I just redraw it altogether. It kind of looked like Telly Savalas, which I was like, that's cool. I like Telly Savalas. I think that's cool. So, nonetheless, the card set. And then we got the Husk from Kill Them Dead, and then a character that I'm not going to talk about just yet. This is a crazy conceptual idea. But this will be a card set. I've got to get this done because it's got to be printed. You know what's funny is when you make a video and then immediately you're like, fuck, the volume wasn't recording. I'm going to make a whole new one. Then you don't remember what you've already said or what you haven't. Like, did I already talk about that? I don't remember. Whatever the case. If I repeat myself, you'll understand why. But anyway, I've got to get this done. I will get it done. I may redraw that Vidon altogether, or I fuck with it till I like it. It's kind of like what Mike Tyson said. I'll fuck you till you love me. Sometimes that's the way it is with art. You look at it and you're like, I don't like it. I could start a whole new one. But sometimes you just gotta fuck it till it loves you. That was one of the funniest things. If you've never seen it, Mike Tyson having an argument. He was on stage and there was some heckler in the audience, and he was yelling at him. I mean, who would heckle Mike Tyson? I mean, I guess you're barriered by security and shit, but he had one of the best comebacks ever, which was, I'll fuck you till you love me, you faggot. I died laughing every time I hear it, because it's Mike Tyson's voice too. I'll fuck you till you love me, you faggot. So, yeah, I've taken that moniker into the art world because there's times where it's so true. So true. But anyway. That said, like, I'm trying to remember what I've said and what I haven't said. Shove is, it's at our printer. We haven't gotten in the queue. Once we do, I'll get a proof. And once the proofs are good, and we're rolling and we're getting printed, it's going to be a phenomenal day. Like, it's hard for me to even imagine. Now, digital copies have gone out to digital backers. And I will say, anybody who backed it, like a physical copy, if you want a digital one to read first, I will gladly send it to you. I don't mind. I know for me, personally, like, I just want to wait for the physical copy. But if you are a physical backer out there and you do just want to see it firsthand, a digital version, yeah, just let me know. I'll send it to you. That said, it was sent to all the digital backers and the fan pack backers. So they were able to pick the original artwork that is going to be sent out. And I've got one response back, and I know which page they chose, and I was not a surprise. I went, yeah, I figured that page was probably going to go. But there's such a cool feeling, because they even said, like, if you're willing to part with it. And I'm like, part with it? For one, you paid for it. I said any page in the book, except the Cole stuff, and except the covers, except the 2-page spread. There was a few off-limits things. But I said, any page you want. And so I very much knew that might be one of the ones in play. Now, as much as, I don't want to give away any original art. Like, I'm, like, so excited to ship that out to them, because I'm like, yeah, you wanted it. Like, you threw down a decent amount of money. I kept it pretty reasonable, considering, I'm not some famous artist. But I was just excited. I mean, that was probably so far been my favorite thing in this whole process, is like those people who got original art. Which page did you want? And they said they had their eye on this page for a long time, because it was used in promotion and stuff. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I love to give that to somebody who appreciates it. Somebody, again, threw down a little bit of extra money to make sure they got a page from this book, which blows my mind. It makes me feel so awesome. So there's no hesitation in sending it. Like I said, part of me wants to keep all my original art, but the fact that somebody like believed in it that much and wanted a piece of this little comics history, that they would throw down some money, is so cool. And then there's another one that I'm waiting to hear back from. Well, there's 2 more that I'm waiting to hear back from. And then once those, I'm excited to see what they pick. So I have one so far, and they were the number 1 pick. It was kind of first come, first serve. So I was like, yeah, you chose well. It was a good page. It was a lot of fun to draw. So that's super cool. So those people got digital versions because that's how they picked their page. And yeah, it made me feel awesome to know that people back that. But now it's like coming home. It's like hitting home. I'm like, oh, I get to wrap up and package this page of art that I spent hours working on. You know, it's a labor of love, and but it's also so cool to ship it out to somebody I believe will appreciate it because they paid money for it. So yeah, and then the physical copies, you know, we're just waiting to get in our time at the printer. Everything's ready to go. We just got to get it printed, and then and get it fulfilled. And yeah, I'm super excited. Super excited. And it's on to the next one. So let's see, what else? What else did I talk about last time that I haven't yet this time? I said that it was super hot. It's definitely hot. I'm dying in here. Like, I got fans going, but my AC is in like a whole other area of the house, and like in there it's nice and temperature controlled. In here, whoa, it's hot. The fans help, but I kind of pointed them away from me so it wouldn't be noise in the microphone. I watched, so today while I was drawing, took a break from all the other shit I was doing, like packing and out of yard work and cleaning up the house. Just because you do packing and you do yard work, and then you're like, my interior house is like getting gross. You know, I gotta clean the bathroom, I gotta do dishes, I gotta do all this stuff. Like, it just piles up, and you just gotta stay on top of that shit. Luckily, it's just me, but but anyway, after I got all that shit done, then I'm like, let's take a little break and let's draw and then watch a movie. And I watched a horror anthology movie, which was a lot of fun. And I'm guessing for my small but loyal, there's a few people out there that enjoy hearing me ramble on about random shit. But in that small but loyal group of people that you are, if you made it this far in the video, you're one of those people, I'm sure. There may be somebody who's seen this. As a fan of horror anthologies, I had not seen it, so I was like, I gotta watch this. It was free on Amazon, at least at the moment. It's called, what was it called? Tales of Halloween, or Halloween Tales? Let me look it up. Tales of Halloween. Came out about 8 years ago. Almost exactly 8 years ago. July 24th, 2015. I loved it. It was an hour and a half long. 10 stories. So all of them super condensed. Tight little stories. And I loved it. It was great. But you know, the stories aren't that, I mean, they're just little tiny stories. They're like 10 minutes long. But that's kind of what I like. It's like peering into a little world. Some crazy shit happens and you bust out. And there was like a cohesive narrative flow, a thing that connected all the stories. It was subtle. It was cool, but it wasn't anything special. But what really got me was the opening introduction, the credits and that opening introduction, the animation on it, the music, everything sucked me right in. It was so much fun. I'm like, I hope these stories don't suck, but even if they do, I'm pretty much in, and some of them kind of did. But it felt like the new Creep show that I watched recently, which I really enjoyed. It felt a lot like that, so if you haven't seen it and you like those little short horror anthology stories, Tales of Halloween was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was 10 stories. I'm not going to go through them all. It was a lot of fun. It had the creep show element. It was fun horror, which is my kind of horror. It's basically what I try to create and keep things light and crazy and wild. So, excellent job. I enjoyed it. So I was like, oh yeah, I already did this all, but I'm going to go through it all again. I got new books. Well, some of these I've had for a bit, but I finally got through them. This one I've had for quite a bit, but finally got through the whole book. And I will say, excellent job, especially from a new creator, knowing that I are one, and you're learning on the fly and everything. SOLTAC from my friend Mad Ruth was an excellent book, and this was 80 or 92 pages, so not a short story. I got the blood and ink version, which it's almost, but look at this art. Some of the art was so well done. Some of it not so much my style, but some of these pages, like this is a great page. I love this skull thing here. I mean, it's just so well done, and the story was a lot of fun. I think what he presented actually hit a lot of notes that I really appreciated. It felt kind of like almost like Firefly. Like Firefly is one of my favorite shows. It had elements of that throughout. So it's like a sci-fi space pirate kind of feel. And the artwork was really good. Very well done. And again, 92 pages. And I got the blood and ink version, which is black and white. Every once in a while there's red. I think they realized there wasn't a ton of blood. So they colored a lot of the lettering red. That said, I just wanted black and white. I love black and white. I appreciate black and white art. But the artist did all the coloring as well. So on the color version, it's the same artist, which again, 92 pages is a lot of work. I know, and none of these are bad panels, bad pages. It was all really well done. The story was fun. I think it's an excellent book. I think if you have not considered it, and you like sci-fi, like compelling, fun sci-fi, definitely give it a shot. SOLTAC was, for a first-time creator, it's a definite home run. Still available on Fund My Comic. I think this is the trade, which is like basically the first 4 issues. And I know he's got another issue or 2 in the works, or available already. But yeah, excellent job. Mad Ruth, loved it. Loved it. And it also gave me an idea about how big Unconditional Shove's going to be, because this is 92 pages. See about how thick that is? About a 1/4 inch. That's about how big Unconditional Shove's going to be, because we're at 88 pages with Shove, so we're just 4 pages shy. So pretty much the same size. But excellent job. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And it took a little while, but that's a good thing. It was a big, meaty 92 pages. And then we got this one, another first-time creator, my friend Hojo, who another home run. Loved what he was presenting. This one is much shorter, so it was a much easier read in a single sit down. The Mythicals, also available. You can still get it on Fund My Comic. And I got this badass Peter Gilmore, who I love his art, is phenomenal. Peter Gilmore cover. I don't know the character's name. I don't remember that it's even mentioned in the book. It says H. Wayne Desper, but I know him as Hojo, so he can call himself whatever he wants. He's Hojo. But this was a lot of fun, and I think the thing I liked best was he set the table, let you know the world that you're entering, and then develop that intrigue at the end, which said, okay, now what? There's definitely more to the story. This is kind of what you want from a first issue. There's more to the story, Now, where do we go from here? With a great final sequence, which was probably one of my favorite pages on the whole book. Again, much quicker read than SOLTAC, but again, from a first-time creator, excellent job, Hojo. Hojo is known for, I mean, he's quite well known for his hustle. He did really pretty well on the campaign, and a lot of it was his willingness to just sell it. But it's a great book, and it's like, again, it gets you excited for issue 2. And that's the thing, like, you know, growing up reading comics, that first issue, set the table and build the excitement for what's next. And he did that. And then again, I heard he did this earlier, but I got this one, and when I did it earlier, I had not looked at it at all. I had just gotten it. So I can't pretend like I haven't looked at it yet, like I did the first time, which I hadn't looked at it, but now I have. This was Truth, Justice, and American Way from Gabe El-Taib. And there was some hubbub. I talked about it the first go-around, but there was some hubbub about this book, especially because when I backed it, I was under the impression that David Williams was drawing it, and then there was whatever happened. I'm not going to talk about that. Like, I'm not even here to talk about that. I have my opinions on that. Regardless, there was people who were like, I am wanting a refund, and I'm like, nah, I just want to see. I want to see what it is, you know. Like, I'm still curious. I did want to see it with David Williams' art, but I was curious what Gabe's art would look like on its own, you know. I've always known him as a colorist. Let's see what his pencil and ink work. And you know, because I already did go through it. It wasn't that bad. It's professional. It's consistent. It's clear. It tells the story. So that said, like, would it be better with David Williams? I 100% believe so. But did he do a good job? Yes, he did do a good job. And it's a big book too. That's a lot of time, a lot of drawing. And it's very clean, very professional. It looks like a comic book. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You know, like, that is a good remark. All the expressions, all the action. I think it would be quite a bit more dynamic if Williams was drawing it, but nonetheless, Gabe did a really good job. Like, the images are good. Particularly like that one, I like that scene there. It's well drawn. Some of it's a little static, but I like this page. But nonetheless, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm gonna read it when I get some moment to actually read it. Right now, I'm just kind of like flipping through and seeing. And I know Gabe is known for his colors. I wish I wanted a black and white version. I would like it better, I think. Because I did get this other supplemental thing that I must have signed up for the tier that got the supplemental thing. But that said, it was really well done. It's very clean, very much like professional modern comic. And for that, I mean, that's the best you can hope for, you know, in a certain sense. But again, very well done. It's not bad in any sense. Just maybe a little less dynamic than what I would have hoped for. And then he's got these character designs in the back. So I did a drawing of Justice for a fan art contest that he ran, which is now in the hands of Sugar Chris, who wasn't even aware of this project. But when he bought the Sugar Chris drawing that I did of him in the red dress out in the West Virginia woods, it was part of a lot that also had my fan art of Justice, which was a lot of fun. So anyway, I wasn't one who's like, I'm going to back out. All the personal weirdness that happened between him and David Williams, it sucks, and I hate hearing about that kind of stuff, but, you know, I'm not one to like be like, I'm going to refund. I'm always curious. I'm just curious. I put my money down. I'm curious. That said, it was packed wrong. I'm just saying. Like, they put the book on the wrong side of the sleeve. I just don't like that stuff. But it came with prints and cards, all that good stuff. But again, I signed up. I must have signed up or did a special tier because I got the Truth, Justice, American Way Raw, which I talked about this a second ago. It's cool. To me, it's cool to see the black and white. This is what I wanted to see. But I did find his notes to be a little pretentious, a little self-serving, a little pat on the back to yourself. It's fine. But it kind of became like drawing comics the big man comics. Because he says, things like this: studying and then executing quality facial expressions helps convey the mood and emotional focus of a scene. It is the illustrator's job to make sure the character's acting agrees with their dialogue. That is true. Action is best conveyed at the extremes of the range of motion. Which that wasn't really said very well, but yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah. If you're making comics, you know, and I guess it's to like aspiring creators or something, you know. It's cool. It's a cool supplemental. It just some of it seemed a little pompous, I guess. Because again, I don't know. I'm really humble with my stuff. Like, I hate, because I also know my shortcomings, and so I hate like anything that seems like I'm patting myself on the back. This is, as a fan of action movies of the 80s and 90s, I do my best to keep the fighting intense. That's fine. That's good. He used a very big word here. The words, facial expressions, and actions of the characters need to reinforce their individual mindsets. A good story always has verisimilitude. Just so you know. Verisimilitude. A good story does have verisimilitude. And I think a good writer will never use verisimilitude in their dialogue. Anyway, it was good. I'll read it eventually, like the actual book. I did find the raw a little self-serving, but it's cool to see the black and white, and some of it was actually pretty cool. It kind of cracked me up that he used verisimilitude in a sentence. Well, it's an old joke that I stole from Norm Macdonald. He said, "Every day I'm learning a new word to add to my vocabulary to give my vocabulary more verisimilitude. Today's word was..." Oh, wait, what was this? Fuck, I fucked it up. "Every day I'm learning a new word to expand my vocabulary to give it more verisimilitude. Today's new word was expand." It's one of my favorite jokes. It's a Norm Macdonald joke. So anyway, whenever I hear that word now, forever, it reminds me of that joke. let's get to the Red Dwarf, and we'll wrap this up. Season 1, Episode 4. I gotta pull it up again, and I closed it. I already went through all this shit. Alright. Episode 4. This is really one of the fan favorites. And it's one of my favorites, too. It's called Waiting for God. An excellent episode, and it really did, like, open up a lot of things about the cat race. Because it's basically all around the cat race. Is, once I get this playback speed up. There we go. Let me share my screen. There we go. So it's called Waiting for God. It starts with the shot of the ship, the Great Red Dwarf, the Jupiter Mining Corporation ship. And then you got Holly, the floating hologram head, introducing, as he always does, Season 1. This is the Season 1 opener. They change it later. So the premise for this episode is basically that the cat race started from Lister's smuggled aboard cat, and through those 3 million years that he was in stasis and the whole crew died, they evolved and grew and procreated into this humanoid evolved version of a cat. And in all that, we find out that they had their own theologies and their own philosophies and their own religions, and all the intricacies of that is what this explores, which is a fun little path to go down. Because you're introduced to the cat and you're like, that's cool. There's a cat who's like a humanoid cat, and he's part of the crew now. Whatever. But to go down this little rabbit hole was great. So the episode starts with Rimmer here. He asked Holly, the ship's computer, to pull up Lister's files from the captain. And from the captain's eyes only. And the captain's like, Lister, he's a slob, he's nothing. And Rimmer kind of gloats in that. It gives him a sense of superiority. And he's like, well, let's see what the captain had to say about me. And so he says, what did the captain have to say about me? And the captain rips Rimmer apart. And that's where he says a phrase. He's like, he wants for power and authority, but he sucks. But basically, he says this one phrase. He says, there's a phrase amongst the captain, or amongst the officers. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. If a job's not worth doing, give it to Rimmer. So it just reinforces how incompetent he is, but also how much he wants for power and authority and responsibility and all these things, but he sucks at it. So he comes in here, and Lister is reading cat books, which you don't read, you sniff. That's how you read cat books, through smells. And he's reading elementary cat books, which say, see, Dick, run. Run, Dick, run. That's hilarious. Anyway, Rimmer finds out that Lister has stole some of his clothing. So he's a hologram, so his clothing's just there. Lister went into his personal stuff and stole it, and Rimmer gets mad at it. But that's where we find out that Rimmer keeps his underpants on coat hangers, which is one of the funniest things ever. And again, like, gives you that much more insight into the personality of Rimmer. Excellently played and acted by Chris Berry. And then here we're reintroduced to the cat, who is very James Brown-like in his movements, in his screams, in his actions, in a very cat-like way. Which James Brown was a cat, so it makes sense. You get a little dialogue from him and Rimmer. You can tell that Rimmer finds him to be just annoying as hell. And Cat is very cat-like, which would annoy a person like Rimmer. But he finds a yo-yo. It shows him how fantastic a yo-yo is and why it's fantastic in a very cat-like way. It's actually a great little bit of dialogue and funny interaction with a lot of catisms. So Rimmer comes back and he finds out there's a pod. They found a pod floating in space. And then you learn about Rimmer's fascination with aliens. He never encounters aliens on the show, but he always wants to. He feels that he idealizes the idea of meeting alien races. So Lister is introduced to the sacred holy book from the cat race. The cat finds it for him, and he finds out that the cat race has always revered Lister as God. And through the translation and misinterpretation, they call him Cloister. And the cat doesn't believe it. He's like, "You're not God." And he's like, No, I was your great-great-great-great-grandmother, Frankenstein, was my pet cat. And all of the things she passed down to the generations was about me being your God. It's just it was an excellent little story they threw in there. But it adds to the lore so much so that they use it throughout the series all the way to the very last thing they did. So in the sacred books, Lister is known as Cloister. He always had a plan to go to Fiji, and that got misinterpreted to Fishal. So Cloister taking the cat race to Fishal, that was the prophecy. So anyway, Rimmer tells Lister about the pod, which is in the observation room, which has not been quarantined yet. And so Lister just like goes in and he makes a big joke about it. He's basically like, yeah, who cares? And he's like, all right, you're stuck in there for 5 months so we can, and he just walks right out. So what happens though is that Rimmer believes it's aliens. He's idealized aliens. He thinks they're going to help and bring enlightenment and technology, whatever, that we've never known. Lister goes in there, finds out it's not aliens, it's actually a red dwarf garbage pod. And Rimmer believed that those rubbed off, the rubbed off lettering was actually ancient, not ancient, but alien script. So Rimmer cannot stop thinking about the aliens. He wakes up Lister to talk about aliens, and he goes on a long spiel. There's a lot of good dialogue, a lot of deep philosophical, like, what's the point of being here? What are aliens? What are we? It's actually really good. I love when the show does this. They do a great job of going back and forth between weighty, philosophical, and spiritual subjects with humor. They do it very well. It's one of the reasons I love the show. Because when you're alone in space, those questions become very, very pressing. And so they're having a little debate. Lister already knows that garbage pod is just garbage. Rimmer is fully believing that they're alien race in there. And once they open up the garbage pod, they're going to be exposed to enlightenment, basically. He thinks they'll give him a physical body. Anyway, some good dialogue with a lot of humor as well. So you got the two stories running parallel, the pod and the cat race and the religion around Lister being God. So it's also where we're introduced to beer milkshakes. Beer milkshakes, brought to you by Lister. So Holly, the ship's computer, translates all the ancient scripts and says, it is true, they do believe you're their god. There was religions formed. There was actually 2 factions of religions. And they had holy wars. One faction went off, and apparently they were hit by an asteroid or some shit. One faction stayed on Red Dwarf and believed that Lister was going to show up again and lead them to Fiushao, which is Fiji, his ultimate plan. So Holly explains the whole history of their religion and the horrible nature of what happened. So Lister can't get over the idea that he is God to this cat race that is mostly, as far as he knows, extinct except the one. Rimmer is totally fascinated with this pod, believing it's an alien race, and doing everything he can to decipher and decode the ancient language of these aliens that is on the pod, which we all know at this point is just worn off Red Dwarf garbage pod. And there's a great scene here where Lister won't shut up about the cat race and their religion, and Rimmer just goes off on him. He's like, I have more important things than you and your stupid cat race. I'm trying to... And that's where he comes up with the Quagars. 2 A's. Quagars. That's what he calls the race of aliens. We also see Lister's space bike, which is a tricycle thing, which kind of reminds me of Danny in The Shining. He's like rolls around the ship on this little tricycle. It's pretty cool. But it's only seen in like season 1, I think. But we find out that the cat is not the only cat left alive. There is an ancient priest who's old, and he's struggling with his faith. He believes it's all. He starts to recant. He starts to denounce his faith. He believes it's all a lie. It's all been a lie, and he denounces his faith. But Lister, searching for the cat, stumbles onto it. So he says, "Burn the sacred hat." That's what they battled over, those 2 factions, whether the hat was going to be red or blue. And then Lister goes, "That's odd, because it was supposed to be green." But Lister shows up after he denounces his faith and declares himself Cloister, the god. Patronizes the old man to no end, because the old man's like, "I've denounced my faith. I failed you, Cloister." And he says, "You didn't fail, old man. You're awesome." And he really does patronize him to make him feel good about not being stupid his whole life. But he's like, but I burned the sacred hat." And Lister goes, "You didn't burn it." So he takes it from the cat and gives it to the old man. The old man thinks it's a miracle. And then, once he thinks it's a miracle and he gets his hat back, Lister says, "Yeah, it's a miracle. You did great." And then he dies. And that's the end of any other of the cat race. But it also highlights how narcissistic the cat is. He doesn't care that somebody just died. It's very cat-like, because anyone who's ever owned cats, they don't give a fuck about anything but themselves. So the episode ends with Lister pulling out a roast chicken from the garbage pod, and Rimmer believing that it's a Quagar warrior. He's like, "A Quagar warrior must have looked something very much like a roast chicken." And then he finally figures it out. It's a freaking garbage pod. It wasn't even... It wasn't aliens. And thus ends Waiting for God, which, again, a fan favorite. One of my favorites. So yeah. I don't know why it turned my mic off for all that. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, oh well. That's all I got. This is Odin. Hope you're doing awesome. Everything you're doing in life, I hope it's awesome. Yeah, and until next time, we'll see ya. This has been a nightmare trying to make this work. Anyway, take care. Love y'all. Shove. Much shove. I shove y'all. Shove y'all very much. Later.